I'm Dale Smith for Looney Politics, and this past week, the Conservatives have blamed the federal government for the transfer of Paul Bernardo from a maximum security facility to a medium security facility, and they're saying that this is because of a piece of legislation passed 2 parliaments ago, at the time known as C-83. Unfortunately, this is an absolutely wrong assertion because the bill was about the rules around solitary confinement. It had nothing to do with security classifications that correctional services applies, only in terms of how solitary confinement policies are applied, and in fact was actually trying to rewrite them out because of several court decisions which found that solitary confinement is against the Charter and also against a number of our international obligations around not subjecting prisoners to degrading or inhumane treatment, and solitary confinement, where you are essentially in a small room for 23 hours of a day, is considered a violation of human rights. So this bill was intended to reform the system so that instead of solitary confinement, corrections was supposed to implement a system known as structured intervention units, which would be a slightly less restrictive. They would have more hours of human contact in a day, and would try and keep people out of the solitary environment for as long as possible, providing, of course, security restrictions and so on and so on. But unfortunately, that also really hasn't played out. Corrections has not been very good at implementing this new policy, and they've been very reluctant to hand over data to the people who are supposed to be monitoring this transition, and so this is becoming a bit of a crisis in and of itself. Nevertheless, this is nothing to do with why Paul Bernardo was transferred, but the Conservatives have glommed onto a single line out of this legislation around the least restrictive measures possible for a prisoner, and trying to assert that this is the reason why Paul Bernardo was given medium security. That's not true. This line about least restrictive measures is in the context of, again, solitary confinement and the practices around thereof, or how these structured intervention units would be applied. This has nothing to do with security classifications, and trying to assert that it does is essentially trying to blame the government for something that it did not do. The Conservatives have also tried this tactic around bail reform when it was the former Bill C-75, which again was not about, the so-called revolving door, but was about applying Supreme Court jurisprudence and actually making it tougher for certain people to get bail in that regard. So once again, we have a narrative based on a false proposition that is being asserted as being the reason why something happened. It isn't. And it would be great if we would have more media outlets actually calling this stuff out for what it is. For Looney Politics, I'm Dale Smith.